Top 10 ESL Approaches and Methods, full version. For a summary of this video, you can watch Top 10 ESL Approaches and Methods shorts. First of all, I'd like to highlight the difference between an approach, a method, a procedure, a technique, and a theory. An approach refers to the way you are going to deal with language learning, while a method is the practical realization of an approach. A procedure is an ordered sequence of techniques. A technique is a combination of activities and tools that allow you to apply the method, thus implementing the approach, while a theory is a philosophical and theoretical study of how language is acquired and used. For example, behaviorism, structuralism, constructivism, cognitive psychology, innatism, and so on. Here are some examples of approaches, methods, and procedures we will be looking at in this video. We will be looking at the following approaches: communicative approach, communicative language teaching, natural approach, and lexical approach. As far as methods are concerned, we will be looking at grammar translation, direct method, audio-lingual method, silent way, Suggestopedia, and total physical response. And as for procedures, we will be looking at PPP, presentation, practice, and production, ESA, engage, study, and activate, and T.P.R, task-based learning. Let's start by looking at grammar translation. The grammar translation method developed in the 19th century. The teacher explains the rules in detail. A wide range of vocabulary is taught in the form of a list of isolated words. Long and complex texts are read and translated, and there is great focus on accuracy. What are the pros of grammar translation method? It requires few specialized skills for teachers, but the cons are that it has little consideration of the spoken language. The direct method is also known as natural method. It developed at the end of the 19th century and at the beginning of the 20th century. It reacts to the restrictions of grammar translation. Great emphasis is placed on practice. Teacher and students speak together, and only target language should be used. Grammar rules are related to real objects, pictures, etc. It concentrates strongly on form rather than subconscious acquisition, and the sentence is still the main object of interest, and accuracy is still very important. The pros of this method are the strong exposition to the target language and emphasis on practice. The cons are that they strongly believe that input and intake will be the same, and there is little space for unconscious acquisition. The audio-lingual method developed in the 1920s, 1930s. The direct method morphs into the audio-lingual method. This method uses the stimulus-response reinforcement model, which had been proposed by behaviorists. They believe that positive reinforcement can stimulate good habits in language learners. They rely heavily on drills. This method is opposed to any theory of subconscious acquisition, and accuracy is still very important. Among the pros of this method, we can say that it focuses on verbal communication in target language. Students are exposed to the target language extensively. Positive reinforcement leads to positive feelings. What are the cons of this method? Too much focus on repetition, and it relies strongly on conscious processes. The communicative approach developed in the 1960s. It focuses on real communication and interaction in the target language. It aims to develop the learner's ability to communicate effectively in different contexts. It encourages interaction, role plays, and it focuses on conveying meaning more than it does on accuracy. It also makes use of authentic materials. Among the pros of the communicative approach, we can say that the students have an active role. It increases the student's self-confidence, it focuses on authentic communication, and it is based on trial and error. It also prioritizes fluency and conveying meaning, but it focuses less on accuracy and on grammatical forms because conveying the message is more important than using accurate grammatical structures and accurate vocabulary. The communicative approach later became communicative language teaching, developed in the 1960s. Rather than focusing solely on grammar, it focuses on communicative functions in relation to the grammar rules. What are communicative functions? For example, expressing preferences, agreeing, disagreeing, asking for, and giving information. Communicative language teaching gives great importance to exposition to language. There is focus on authentic and realistic communication, and it makes use of role plays. Among the pros, we can mention that students have an active role. It increases students' self-confidence. It focuses on authentic communication. It is based on trial and error. It allows students to simulate real situations, and the teacher becomes a facilitator. As far as the cons are concerned, fluency and communication are more important than accuracy. The silent way is a method developed in the 1960s by Gattegno. The teacher should be as silent as possible. Learners should be encouraged to produce as much language as possible, and the teacher points to sounds on a phonetic chart. Among the pros of this method, we can say that it stimulates problem solving, and students have to think about what they are learning and are placed in a position of responsibility. However, this method may cause frustration. There is little exposure to language, and the teacher's silence may act as a communicative barrier. In the 1970s, Georgi Lozanov developed a method called Suggestopedia, which focuses primarily on the environment where learning takes place. Students need to feel at ease. They take on different names and simulate a child-parent relationship with the teacher. The teacher reads previously studied dialogues with music background, and traumatic topics are completely avoided. It follows 4 steps: presentation, active concert, passive concert, and practice. And there are pauses of solemn silence. There are many pros in this method. For instance, it focuses on positive emotions and has a student-friendly environment. Music, art, and drama are integrated in the lesson, and it lowers the affective filter. However, it is often considered the strangest humanistic method. It lacks of scientific evidence, and it is not suitable for students of all ages. It can only be used with small groups. Total physical response developed in the 1970s, and it is a method which was developed by James Asher. It makes use of physical movement to react to verbal input. It coordinates speech and physical actions One example of T.P.R could be the children's game Simon Says. Among the pros, it definitely engages participants and it is entertaining, especially for children. It is useful for students with a more kinesthetic inclination. However, it is not always suitable for people of all ages, and it is not suitable for all purposes. The natural approach was developed in the 1970s, 1980s by Tracy, Terrel and Stephen Krashen. It was opposed to the Audio-Lingual Method, focusing on drilling and explicit correction. On the other hand, the natural approach focuses on oral communication with limited correction of mistakes. It has limited conscious grammar study. It focuses more on vocabulary than on grammar and places very little focus on drilling. What are its pros? It is suitable for people of all ages. It focuses on reducing learners' anxiety. It advocates a stress-free environment to improve students' self-esteem and confidence. It lowers the affective filter, exposes students extensively to language, called comprehensible input, and does not force them to produce language output until they feel ready. What are the negative features of the natural approach? It places very little focus on accuracy and limits conscious grammar study. And finally, the lexical approach. It developed in the 1990s. It was discussed by Dave Willis and popularized by Michael Lewis. It focuses on learning prefabricated chunks of language, for example, collocations, idioms, etc., and it shifts from the study of syntax and verb tenses to the study of prefabricated expressions. What are the positive features of this approach? It gives less importance to grammatical structures and more attention to phrases and expressions typical of the language. However, it is not so clear how to teach and learn chunks of language, and there is very little or no focus on grammatical structures. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to click on like and subscribe to watch more videos.